Welcome to Mum Abroad's YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by Nuria Freixas, a local to Barcelona, who's lived and worked in London for 6 years. She also studied linguistics and Spanish at Birkbeck College, that's part of the University of London. When she returned to Barcelona, she trained as a Spanish teacher, and after 10 years or so experience, she set up her own company, Spanish Comes Easy. Hi, Nuria.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. Nuria, what would you say makes a good Spanish teacher?
Well, first of all, I would say being empathetic. It's very important to understand where the students come from, and not just the country, but to understand their frustrations and sometimes the awkwardness when they speak Spanish for the first time, or even more advanced students. It's important to be aware and really care about their language needs and also their personal needs.
I think it's probably important to make classes as enjoyable as possible, isn't it? Without
Yeah.
putting pressure on people.
Yeah. I always say that learning a language is not a one-time event, it's a process. And so if you're going to spend years studying a language, you might as well enjoy it. And because if you don't, well, first of all, it's a shame if you don't enjoy doing what you do. But besides, if you don't enjoy something, eventually you'll give up. So it's important that the lessons are enjoyable, that you see progress, that you see that you are advancing. Sometimes students are so overwhelmed with all the Spanish grammar they need to learn that the only thing that can help really make them feel better is when they see that they are actually progressing, because that's the main thing, to see that they are getting better and better, that they can express themselves more fluently. That's the main thing.
Can you tell us a bit about your path to becoming a Spanish teacher?
Well, I used to live in London for 6 years. That's many years ago. And when I came back, I decided I wanted to become a Spanish teacher. To be honest, it wasn't like a big vocation. It was something that I thought I could enjoy and I could do well because I like helping people. But the minute I started my training and then when I had my students, well, I really loved it. And to this day, I'm enjoying it a lot. When I started working as a Spanish teacher, I wanted to make sure my students would always feel at ease in class. And I would always focus on, I always focus on communication, making sure they become fluent, because I know what it's like when you try to have a conversation with someone and you don't understand anything they say. I remember when I was in London, there I met my husband. Then he was my boyfriend. And sometimes you meet people and I would just smile and kind of giggle and nod. And then the person was serious. I would go like putting a serious face. And then afterwards, my husband would say, "You didn't understand a thing, did you?" And I said, no, I didn't. And we laughed. But at that time, it wasn't funny. It was actually very stressful. And so that's why when I was talking about empathy, that's why I say that being a language teacher, in my case, a Spanish teacher, empathy is so important, because people, I teach adults, mainly ladies, expat ladies, but even those who are excellent at their work and they are very confident, when they start speaking a language, or when they feel, even if they have some knowledge, but they don't feel confident, that is something that undermines their self-esteem sometimes. It's like they cannot communicate the way they want to with people. They are not self-sufficient. They need to ask for help for everything. So I know the struggle, and yeah, looking back, I can laugh now. But when I was the worst thing was, and I don't know if you've gone through this yourself, but when you don't understand someone and you're just praying the person won't ask you a question, because nodding and smiling, that's okay. But you think, please do not ask me any questions, because right now I don't even know what you're saying. And it's like, can we just drop it? And it's not enough. It's not good enough after a while saying, I don't understand you, because it feels awkward. So yeah, try to help and also give tools. I like giving tools to my students to feel them more confident. For instance, one thing that stops us from speaking a foreign language is that when we start listening to ourselves speaking, uh, in my case it was English, my students' case is Spanish, it feels so funny. It's like I'm putting an accent and I sound weird. And so I tell them to record themselves. If you record yourself every day for 1 minute, like, or even 30 seconds, just 1 minute a day, you record yourself and then you listen to yourself. That helps you a lot, because you get used to listening to your own accent. So when you are speaking to someone, you have your mind, your brain is working over time. You need to think of what you want to say, how you're going to say it, what grammar you're going to use. Even if it's not correct, the grammar, still you need to think of the words and how you're going to put things. And if you're conscious about your accent, then it's kind of impossible to have, even if it's a super basic conversation. So these things help gain confidence, and also feels that what I've noticed is that if you do these things, you feel that you're not so lost, that you have tools and you have power to do things to make you feel more at ease.
Nuria, in your opinion, what's the best way to learn a language?
The best way is the way that works for you. There's people out there telling you don't do this, which sometimes I do. I sometimes say, oh, this is not a good idea. List of words, vocabulary is not a good idea. But at the end of the day, it's what works for you. You first need to decide. You want to have class, go to class. Do you want to have a one-on-one Spanish lessons, or do you want to learn by yourself? I would say that very few people, but very, very few people can learn a language by themselves with no help. But it's an option. Then you need to make sure that you are at ease in class, that you enjoy it, and that you see progress. And if you want to have the best teacher, this might not be very popular, but become the best student. When you're the best student, and then you'll be surprised how much your teacher is going to help you. Sometimes people ask me, oh, so what do you like about students, or do you like this student? I like all my students because it's a one-on-one, so I learn to get to know them, and I learn to actually care and like them. But the thing is, if for me, repeating things is not a problem. It's part of my job. It's not something that I find a pain. But what really excites me as a teacher is when I see a student who's committed and wants to learn. That is something that I always help all my students. But I'll be honest. If someone wants more and more, that for me as a teacher is very encouraging. So if you want to learn Spanish, commit to learning the language. Obviously, it takes time, and not always you'll be very excited about it, but try to be consistent and try to make it enjoyable. That's what I would say.
You have Spanish audio stories on your website. How important do you think is it to listen and read as well as speak when learning a language?
It's very important, because if you don't understand what the other person's saying, like I was telling you earlier on about London, if you don't understand, you cannot have a conversation. And so it's important that you practice. During the pandemic, I actually created some videos on Instagram, and then I decided those videos to turn them into an audio that you can get. Just you need to subscribe to SpanishComeseasy.com, and you get like a story, 5 chapters, and it's a mystery story with a murder and all that I wrote. And it's for students level A1, A2. It's important to do it consistently, because you won't see results straight away. But the more you do it, the more eventually you'll realize that understanding people is easier. And if you're an advanced student, something that you can do to improve your comprehension is, let's say you live in Spain and you're used to locals. What you could do is to decide, okay, I'm going to listen to Argentinians, or I'm going to listen to Mexicans. And then internet is fantastic for this. You can find podcasts or videos with captions, and that's going to help you a lot, because you'll get used to a different way of speaking Spanish. And not necessarily will help you to understand only those people from that country, but it will train you to actually be able to understand people who speak not maybe not so clearly, because you are used to listening to different ways of speaking the language. But for beginners, I would say stick to a single one accent. If you live in a country, then stick to that country. And if you are abroad, then decide which country, but stick to one accent at the beginning.
Being settled in a country is not just about learning the language, is it? It also includes understanding the culture. Mm-hmm. And you touch on this in your classes. So how do you do that exactly?
Spanish books for learners, apart from covering grammar and vocabulary, they also cover culture. And there are texts where they talk about different topics. So what we do is we discuss on those topics. There's things that are important for the student to know. Some are on the book, some are not. Obviously, I don't give them a talk on the topic. It's a conversation that we have. But I find it's important for them to realize the differences. And it's actually very fun when we compare how they do things in their country and we do things here. And sometimes they complain, but the fact that they complain and they laugh makes things easier. So, yeah. Or, for instance, understanding that over here we don't use please as often as, for example, the British, because, but that doesn't make us so rude. It's just that we have different ways of showing respect. Like when you ask for a coffee, you may not say please, but with your tone, because of your tone, it's implied the please. So these things is important the student to understand.
Do you have any advice, Nuria, for women who are feeling overwhelmed with their relocation and everything else that goes with it, and then also having to learn a language on top of that? What advice would you give to people?
I would give them my advice. I'm sure it will sound a bit weird coming from me, a Spanish teacher, but I would say, I would tell them to join a support group, like a group of moms, if they are moms, a group that speak their language or that they speak English. Because it's important that when they come here at the very beginning, that they have a support network, that they know that if they have a problem, something that they don't know how it works, that they can turn to someone, or if they had a bad day. So yes, the first thing I would say is join a a group of ladies or a mixed group, but with people who speak your language or English. And also, I would say do that, but bear in mind that if you don't pay attention, you may end up in an expat bubble. So if you don't want that, do that, but at the same time, join a class and take it as a job. Some ladies who come here with their husbands, they used to work back home, but over here they don't work. So I would say this is your job. And if you take it as a job, then it gives you a purpose. And so learning the language, understanding that it takes time, understanding that it's a process that you need to learn how to enjoy, and also having that support group, that I think it's a good balance.
Really good tips, Nuria. Thank you. I'm going to put at the bottom your website, which is www.spanishcomeeasy.com. People can look there and find more information about your classes. They can also find your contact details, so the telephone number and email address. Nuria, thank you very much. It was really interesting to talk to you today.
It was great talking to you, Jane.